Hola, ¿cómo estás? Espero que estés muy bien. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about the difference between el castellano and el español. The difference between castellano, Castilian, and Spanish. Now, what's the difference? What even is Castilian? All right, this is kind of a confusing thing when we first learn about it, but it's actually pretty simple. So without further ado, sin más preámbulo, let's jump right in. Okay, so in Spain, there are multiple Spanish languages. Now, what I mean by this is we have Castellano, which is the principal language. So when you hear Spanish, you're going to think of this, Castellano, which is what you'll hear spoken in Spain. However, in different regions of Spain, other languages or dialects are spoken. So here, for example, Catalan. I'm sure you've heard about this. This comes from the Catalunya region of Spain. So it's different than Castellano, okay? Now, it is quite similar, I will say. And when I went to Barcelona, which is located in Catalunya, I could more or less understand what people were trying to say when speaking in Catalan. In fact, on my YouTube channel, Nate's Adventures, I did a video where I tried to understand Catalan, and I did pretty okay. Now for Galician, this comes from the region of Galicia or Galicia, right? And then we have Basque. Now this actually comes from the Basque country, which is located in Spain. And this is actually quite fascinating because Basque is the only unintelligible language in the world, which essentially means it's not really related to any other language out there. So just like Spanish and Portuguese and Italian all have Latin roots, Basque has no real traceable history, which makes it really cool. Now, the relationship between the Basque country and Spain is a bit of a complex one, so we won't get into any geographical politics or anything in this lesson, especially because, Catalunya and the Basque country have some kind of tensions with, overall Spain. But anyways, Castellano, this is the Spanish that you're familiar with and that you'll most likely be hearing if you were to go to Spain. Now, in Latin America, they speak Español, as we know it, right? Spanish. Now, Español just basically means the language coming from Spain. Now, the reason that Spain calls it Castellano, and they also call it Español, is because Castellano comes from a region in Spain called Castile, which essentially where the Spanish you're used to has its roots, where it was created. Okay? So, like we talked about, Español, right? This is the language spoken in Latin America. And depending on the country, there's going to be different vocabulary, different accents, okay? But if I was to go to Mexico, I would be able to communicate with the people there, just like I would be able to if I went to Argentina. Of course, there's going to be different accents and different words, but for the most part, I understand it, right? It's just your regular old Español. Okay, now I added these in here as well. These are called Nahuatl and Canjobal. Now, the reason I added these in here are just to show that within Latin America, there are still many of different languages and also dialects. So, Nahuatl is a language that is native to what is modern-day Mexico. This is actually a language from the Aztec people, which is pretty cool. And some people still speak it in Mexico to this day. Same thing with Canjobal. Canjobal actually comes from Mexico and parts of Guatemala. It may come from some others. And this actually comes from the Mayan people, which is pretty awesome. Now, a really cool story, and the reason I wrote this on here is because a week ago or so, there were some guys painting my parents' house. And I was in my room getting some work done, and I heard them speaking to each other. And I was so confused, and I was like, man, is my Spanish really bad, or what's going on? I don't understand what these guys are saying. But it turns out they were Guatemalan, and they were speaking Canjobal, which is this dialect found in parts of Guatemala and southern Mexico, places like Chiapas. And it was so cool, and they were teaching me some words. They taught me how to say hello, which I believe was along the lines of like ajijic or something like that. And then gracias was aju ojo al Dios or something like that. But it was really cool, and it was, it's a good reminder. Hey, Latin America is very diverse, and there are still plenty of different native languages and dialects to be found there. Okay? Alrighty, so let's come over here. I've been rubbing up on the whiteboard, so we got a little erasing going on there. Okay, so let's take a look at the difference between a Castellano pronunciation and a Espanol pronunciation. Essentially what I mean by this is the pronunciation you'll hear in Spain versus the pronunciation that you'll hear in Latin America. Once again, remember that within Latin America, different countries have different pronunciations, but more or less this is kind of how it goes. So the first, la taza es azul, okay? The cup is blue. Now that's how I say it. La taza es azul, okay? However, in Spain, they have that, right? That kind of lisp when they say their Z's, okay? Also their C's. So, la taza es azul, okay? La taza es azul. So it sounds kind of funny, but that's how it would be pronounced. So that's Castellano. Now you come over here, how I would say, la taza es azul, okay? Now, a quick little pronunciation lesson for you if you are learning a more Latin American Spanish is that, remember, for your Z's, when you pronounce them, it's not azul. It's not azul, right? It's azul. It makes that S sound, okay? So be aware of that. Azul versus azul, right? Azul, okay? So, la taza es azul, la taza es azul. Okay, so a much bigger difference there. All right, now, when it comes to Castellano, we also have some vocabulary differences. Okay, so in Spain, you're going to hear, for example, el boli or el bolígrafo for the pen. Whereas in Latin America, you're more than likely going to hear la pluma. Okay, so just vocabulary differences going on here. Coche, el coche, the car, versus el carro or el auto. You'll also hear. Now, I will say that sometimes, I know in Mexico, sometimes the word coche is used, but more often than not, you're going to hear these two, carro or auto. Okay? Alrighty. So next, the big one is ustedes versus vosotros. Now, with Castellano, or for lack of a better term, the Spanish in Spain, they use this form right here, the vosotros form. Now, all this form is the informal you guys form. So what I mean by this, if I'm talking to a group informally, let's say I'm talking to my friends, I could say, hey, vosotros, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that means, hey, you guys, blah, 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 or you all, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is the informal plural. Okay, now in Latin America, we don't have that. We use ustedes, which technically in Castellano, in Spain, is the formal plural. So let's say I'm at an important business conference and I'm talking to a bunch of successful business people, I'll use ustedes. However, in Latin America, with our regular español, we'll use ustedes formally and informally. So I could be at the business conference using ustedes and chatting with my friends and using ustedes. Okay, so that's another big difference. Now, if you're trying to learn Castellano, then you need to learn this, vosotros. And if you're trying to learn a more Latin American Spanish, maybe Mexican Spanish, Colombian style Spanish, then you'll just need ustedes. Okay? Now, I will say, I lived in Spain for 3 months, and when people would speak to me using this vosotros, right, if we were in a group and someone would refer to us with that, it's actually not quite hard to understand. It's just hard to reciprocate using this form. Okay? Alrighty, next example. I apologize for this, my back rubbing up on the whiteboard here. Fui al mercado versus he ido al mercado. So in Latin America, we'll use the preterite tense, which is a past tense, the preterite tense to say, hey, I went to the market. Fui al mercado. I went to the market. Whereas in Spain, with Castellano, you're more likely to hear he ido al mercado. Now, the translation here is very subtly different, okay? So this basically, in my English brain, says, I went to the market. However, in Spain, this would be, I have gone to the market. Okay, so this little word, means I have. Then ido is called the past participle, means gone. So I have gone to the market versus I went to the market. So this, the top one, is going to be used in Latin America. This is going to be used in Spain, or Castellano. Now, understand that this little tense right here is still used in Latin America. It just depends on the context. However, this is going to be used much more, the use of the preterite. Now, for Spanish speakers, they kind of translate this in their head as I went to the market, just like this sentence. However, in English, we'll translate that as I have gone to the market. So, for example, if I want to say, I spoke with my sister. He hablado con mi hermana is how I would say it in Spain with castellano. But in Latin America, I would say hablé con mi hermana. Okay? So, subtle difference there. Okay? Now, last kind of funny story I'd like to end the lesson with was when I went to Spain, I believe I was in a bus and we were driving and I saw a sign that said El Parking. And I'm thinking, that's so funny. You know, everyone says that Castellano or the Spanish spoken in Spain is the more proper Spanish, right? It's the more correct Spanish. Yet here I was in Spain seeing El Parking, right? Now, I found this funny because when I had gone to Mexico a few months earlier, I had seen a sign that said estacionamiento, also meaning parking. So I was kind of laughing at this because in Spain, the more proper, Spanish was using el parking. And in Mexico, where maybe there's a less proper Spanish, you were saying estacionamiento. Now, it was funny because I kind of laughed at this. And then I spoke with one of my friends about this. And they said that actually in Mexico, if you see like a valet parking, you might also see that as well. It'll say like valet parking. And then they'll use that word parking, which I thought was kind of funny, which is just being pulled straight from English, right? And that happens a lot with Spanish near the United States. So in somewhere like Mexico, to say lunch, normally you would say el almuerzo, okay? Like vamos a almorzar, we're going to eat lunch, which you can still definitely say in Mexico. But you'll hear el lonche for lunch, right? So just being pulled straight from English there. Okay? But that's pretty much the main differences from Castellano and Español. Now, not gigantic differences. I think the biggest difference that you'll encounter between Castellano and Español is just the accent. Just the way that Spanish speakers from Spain versus, let's say, Mexico would pronounce things and also their choice of words. Well, there you have it. There is the difference between el castellano contra el español. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and also subscribe if you haven't already. It helps me out a lot. Y nos vemos en la siguiente lección. Chao.